This is IGN. The Number of the Beast is now 28. This is your IGN review of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple by Clint Gage. There was a guy sitting behind me at my screening of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple who, when the credits began to roll, stood up and loudly declared to his buddies that we can put the worst movie of the year debate to bed because this movie was that bad. Now, forgetting for a second that January 12th is a little early to rest your case on that particular argument, he went on to say that a movie about murderous cult followers indiscriminately killing has nothing to do with zombies taking over society, which means he was not only wrong because this movie is really good, but he also missed the whole point of the thing. Picking up where last year's long-range sequel installment left off, Nia DaCosta's film is a gruesome and fabulously shot new chapter of the franchise that, with all due respect to the dude sitting behind me, will very much not be the worst movie of the year. There's a part of me that can imagine screenwriter Alex Garland just scripting way too much for 28 Years Later. Maybe he wrote a 300-page script that was all great, so he and fellow 28 Days and Years creator, director Danny Boyle decided they couldn't cut any of it, but Sony made them split it in two. That doesn't feel quite right, however, because even though The Bone Temple starts immediately after the events of 28 years, maybe even minutes later, and was filmed back-to-back with its predecessor, the films deserve to be their own stories. The Bone Temple is concerned with something else. It's got different aims visually, thematically, even tonally, which makes the choice to hand the directing duties over to Nia DaCosta all the more crucial. DaCosta is a very interesting filmmaker. With her work in horror on Candyman a few years ago, the unconventionally Violet Hedda last year, and now The Bone Temple, she's putting together a wide variety of work, and all of it is forceful. There are no pulled punches in her films, and The Bone Temple is certainly no exception. I found it to easily be the most gruesome of the 28 later films, and that's not a low bar to clear. In one especially gnarly scene, the roving band known as the Jimmies take their version of satanic charity to an extreme. This is not violence committed against an infected, but against their fellow man, which is what made this the hardest to watch of the franchise and very probably what set off the dude behind me. And while I don't want to turn this into an essay about zombies and pop culture, part of the point of the monsters is to mirror the potential for us to become monsters, and that's one of the Bone Temple's biggest wins. Jack O'Connell is magnificent and nearly steals the show as cult leader Jimmy Crystal, a type of role for which he's now in danger of being typecast. His performance and the theme his character represents work hand in hand better than any I've seen lately. The fingers, as they're called, that form the fist of his followers are every bit as infected as the zombies and every bit as mindless. As an American, I had to get educated about Jimmy Savile after 28 Years Later sprung that image on us in its closing minutes, but The Bone Temple and the things that come to light in the sequel about O'Connell's villain make the choice downright brilliant. Did I mention the movie is funny too? Because it's downright hilarious at times. DaCosta employs a darkly comedic sense of timing, whether it be punctuating a quiet conversation with a man engulfed in flames bursting through a door or interrupting a morning shave with a deer head. There's a gross, funny vibe in this movie that's pitch perfect. It reaches a level of absurdity that's absolutely necessary for the film to work as well. For the ideas to really land, the seriously satirical aspect of zombies needs an opposite number of some dark humor. It allows for a distance at which you can see the thematic forest for the trees, unless you're the guy behind me. Ultimately, as the subtitle of the film makes clear, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple is a companion piece. It goes without saying to some degree because it's a sequel, but you really need to have seen 28 Years Later for any of this movie to make sense. Of course, you could say the same thing about The Empire Strikes Back or Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, but prior knowledge of the franchise was not a prerequisite for the other three films. 28 Years Later, for example, could be the first film you watch in the series and you wouldn't be lost. So, with apologies to the very wrong dude behind me, we're gonna have to keep that worst movie of the year debate open for a little longer. 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple's getting an 8. Director Nia DaCosta crafts a great follow-up to last year's 28 Years Later that's gory and thoughtful in equal measure. There's a wit and humor at play in The Bone Temple that elevates, in all the right ways, the dramatic stakes of a zombie apocalypse working on its third decade, especially in Ralph Fiennes' record collection. I'd give the film a 666 if IGN would let me. While it might not be the best place to start watching the 28 Later franchise for the uninitiated, the creative force driving the series' future have two solid movies as the foundation for whatever comes next. 28 years later, the Bone Temple's IGN score? 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest updates on 28 years later, the Bone Temple, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.